Well, hey there, and welcome to Unmistakably You. I am Amy. Happy Wedding Wednesday. Hopefully, you're having an amazing day. It is a beautiful, hopefully, start to spring. And going into the Easter weekend, I am looking forward to hopefully getting some warmer weather and getting geared up for our weddings that are coming up. We are kicking it into high gear in the next couple of weeks. We had a fantastic first dance workshop at the studio last night, and it was an awesome opportunity to connect with some of our upcoming couples and just to kind of get excited about what's coming. I mean, generally speaking, we don't do a lot of weddings in March because March is gross. It's brown and muddy and usually not very nice outside. So we're excited about our April weddings and everything that's coming up for the fall. So super excited to talk about something that we often see in spring weddings, which is pastel colors. And with it being Easter next weekend, I mean, this is a theme that you may choose to embrace, and you may decide to run far, far away from pastel colors. We've been seeing an awful lot of green and white over the last couple of years, which of course is classic and beautiful and trendy, except that it's not really trendy anymore. We're seeing some more colors creeping into the landscape of weddings this season, which I'm super excited about. But there's, let's be honest, a way to do it well and a way to maybe avoid doing it. And that's true of everything in weddings. There's a way to do music well and a way to avoid, and there's a way to do food well and a way to avoid, and all of the things. So let's be classy together and let's find a way to do colors, specifically pastel colors, and to do them well so that you don't look like an Easter egg, because Easter eggs are delicious. Not gonna lie to you, I love me some chocolate, not the cheap ones, not those like foil wrapped ones that you got a million of when you were a kid, but I mean, some Annie's chocolate, maybe some mint smoothies. Absolutely hook me up. I'm all over Easter chocolate. I love the colors too, but if they're done well. So let's talk about how to do it well. So color is going to be an absolute instrumental feature here in any kind of spring pastel wedding, because pastel is a color designation, and that's what we're talking about. So let's dive right into color. Complementary colors are something that on the color wheel, if you remember back to grade 9 art class, are opposite of each other. So we're thinking things like red and green. That's why Christmas colors are so iconic. But if you think about Christmas colors, it's like green and red, and they're super in your face. And they tend to be kind of jarring because they are so diametrically opposed. They're opposite each other on the color wheel. And so that kind of, if you moderate the shades and tones, that still applies to colors that are opposite, even if you tone them down a little bit. So red becomes pink and green becomes like a mint or a teal or something like that. So you still want to potentially, if you don't want your wedding to look like an Easter egg, but you want to have pastels in there, avoid colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, complementary colors like purple and yellow. Or, I mean, technically purple and blue are opposite each other, but if you throw a little bit of red into that purple, into that blue, you get a purple. And the same thing with green and purple, like green and red are opposite, but you throw a little blue in there, you get the purple. So you basically just want to avoid sticking to maybe 2 colors that are opposite on the color wheel, because it's going to be a little bit too jarring, a little bit too different, a little bit too I don't know, like opposite in color world. I can't think of any more adjectives to better explain what I mean here. But if you're looking at the pictures, you can hopefully see that, I mean, there's a big difference between those 2 colors. There's bright and there's muted. There's light and there's dark. There's warm and there's cool. And if you don't have something in the middle to moderate that, you may find that it doesn't really create that soft pastel look that you're looking for, because presumably if you're going for pastels, it's because you like that soft look. So here's a thought. Let's, instead of going with those bright, true colors, let's choose muted colors. Let's maybe choose colors that are a little bit dusty, a little bit soft. So instead of going with purple, choose a mauve or mauve, depending. I don't know what's right. Pop it in the comments. Say hi and tell me whether you say mauve or whether you say mauve, because I see it every way and I was raised with mauve, so mauve sounds weird to me. Anyway, think that color that I can't pronounce. Think dusty rose instead of pastel pink. Think of sage instead of mint green or sea foam. Oh, Rosemary, hi. Mauve? Okay, cool. I knew you were my people. Mauve. Think steel blue instead of baby blue. So choose those muted, more sort of dusty colors. Those pastels will tend to blend together because they're moderated by a touch of gray. And that's going to smooth everything out a little bit, as opposed to those really sort of popping diametrically opposed colors that are complementary on the color wheel. Something else you're going to want to maybe think about is choosing an anchoring color or an element. So it doesn't have to be a color, it could be something like wood elements. So maybe you want to keep that consistent. If you're using a lot of colors, keep that consistent element through your wedding, the wood. So maybe you're going to choose a light wood tone, and maybe like in this picture on the left, it shows up in your harvest tables and your light wood chairs, and it's an element of the naturals in your centerpieces. Maybe you want to unify with a metal, so maybe you bring in silvers or golds. But if you're choosing a wide palette of pastel colors, keep the unifying elements like your woods or your metals nice and neutral and common throughout the whole theme, so that it's not all of the things happening all at once, like all of the colors and all of the metals, or all of the colors and all of the wood tones, because it's just not going to look like it's curated and cohesive unless you have something that unifies everything. Now, you certainly can use lots of colors, and there are lots of beautiful examples out there of lots of pastel colors that play really nicely together, but make sure that they're the same saturation. So what I mean by that is choose muted tones. Pastels by nature are muted, but make sure that everything is equally soft. So in these pictures, we have a really soft palette of pinks and ivories and purples and a little bit of cream in there and maybe a little bit of light blue. So there are lots of different colors at play, but they are all really soft and they all complement each other nicely. They also create a really nice texture with the variety of flowers that they've chosen here. So if you are mixing things up, which I would suggest if you're doing a pastel color scheme, make sure that one color isn't brighter or more vibrant than the others. Make sure that they're all equal saturations or equally muted, and make sure that you're playing with textures too, because that's going to make it look more intentional that you have a wide variety of colors if you also have a wide variety of textures. Now, when it comes to your fashion, I'm a big fan of the mixed matched bridesmaid look that's really popular right now. That's great. It's awesome. Do it for sure. But there are a couple of rules that you need to follow. You need to make sure that it is unified somehow, or else it's going to look like you literally just went through Hudson's Bay and picked out a bunch of dresses off the rack with a blindfold on. So make sure that you are unifying either with color or with style. So there are a bunch of different pictures here. The one on the far left, we've got that beautiful, soft, sort of minty seafoam green, and that's the unifying color, which allows all three of those dresses in the picture to be a different style and a different fabric. But because they're the same color, they work really well together. If you're looking at the yellow print ones, yeah, they're all print and they're all different sizes of print and different tones of yellow. But the fact is that they're all the same cut. So they all have that same sort of low boat neckline, and they all have a waistband, and they're all sort of just below the knees. And so that's going to unify, even though they're different patterns and different tones of yellow, those work together really nicely. Similarly, the one underneath, all different prints. And I've seen this work so beautifully at a few weddings in the recent past. And I love this. If you're thinking about doing mixed patterns, for sure, do it. But make sure that in the picture at the sort of the middle bottom here, if you're looking at that, there are different lengths of skirt, but the tone of blue is all really similar. So we've got different patterns, different styles of dress, but The tone of blue is all really similar, which is your unifying feature that you want to set with, if you're letting your bridesmaids choose their own dress, set that expectation with your bridesmaids to make sure that they're all on the same page, so that you don't get someone who shows up in a navy blue and someone who shows up in a baby blue and someone who shows up in a steel blue. So that tone is all going to work really well together. Then on the top right, you've got the same color, different styles. So you're unifying there with your color and allowing your girls maybe to choose a style that's most flattering for them. And then the bottom right, you've got all different colors. But again, the unifying factor is that they all have a sweetheart neckline and they all are the same length. So even though they're different colors, they don't look Easter eggy, if I can use that as a descriptor. I don't know if I can, but I just did. So, whatever. They're all the same length. They have the same cut on the neckline, and they're all in the same saturation of tone. They're all really, really soft colors. So they work together. They play really nicely together. So think about unifying your fashion either with a unified color or tone, and then a style. And it doesn't have to be the exact same dress for every girl, but it can be the length is the same, or the neckline is the same, or they are all asymmetrical, one shoulder, something like that. Keep them unified in some way, and they'll play nicely together instead of looking like some kind of a thrift store accident, which we probably don't want on our wedding days. Now, when it comes to color as well, you're going to want to unify your elements with the same color. Now, I don't mean that you have to keep one color throughout your entire decor scheme. Don't get me wrong. Like I just said a couple of slides ago, it's absolutely beautiful in your florals to mix up colors of similar saturations, keep the textures really interesting, and that works in your decor as well. But what I would suggest is to make it look more intentional, avoid mixing up colors within the same element. So the picture on the left, you can see on first glance, it looks really beautiful. But the thing that bothers me about this picture is that all of the taper candles are different colors. So for my money, and again, I mean, who am I? Who cares what I say? There are no wedding police. But from my perspective, if you unified those colors of candles, it's going to create a more cohesive look because you've got the same color of napkin on every place setting. You've got the same color of candle spread throughout the table. And then you're adding your variety in color in your floral scaping. And that's going to create much more of an intentional look as opposed to an accidental look. We're trying to, in most cases, unless it's the theme of your wedding, avoid that sort of, I got it at a thrift store, or I bought it on sale, or I put together these 18 things that I bought on Facebook Marketplace, but they were cheap. We want it to look intentional and purposeful. And so if those candles were all the same color, for my money, it's a unifying thing that makes it look more intentional. Same thing with your napkins. I don't love the mixed up napkin color look. I think that you can absolutely do a different color goblet than your napkin. You can do a different color votive than your napkin. You can do different color florals than your napkin, 100%. But I would suggest keeping all of your votives the same color, keeping all of your napkins the same color, keeping all of your goblets the same color, or very, very close to the same color family. And that's going to create that unity and that feeling that it's intentional instead of that feeling that it's just cobbled together like a kindergarten craft. So because in the picture on the right, you've got a dark purple napkin and a really light purple napkin, I mean, they're in the same color family, but they're so different in saturation that I would prefer, and I think it would look more cohesive if they happened to be the same color. And then, like in the picture, do your dark purple votives, but keep all your votives the same color. Do your light purple napkin, do your dark purple votives. You've got the two different saturations of purple, but then because the individual elements are unified, it looks more intentional. Now, we've talked color, which really is what we're focused on tonight because we're talking about using pastels. But let's talk for just a second about Easter, since it's top of mind. It's next weekend. In any wedding, I would suggest not getting too themey unless your theme is kind of like super personal, super connective in terms of reflecting who the two of you are as a couple, and that it's really, really, really unified. So in the case of something like an Easter theme, if you happen to be getting married in the spring, near Easter, you maybe want to incorporate some elements of Easter. Don't get too themey. I'm going to suggest to you that if you have a bunny manicure and that shows up in your pictures in 20 years, you might cringe a little bit when you show your kids or when you show your grandkids those pictures. If every single element is all about the Easter eggs and the the bunny themed elements, I think you might find that it gets dated or it gets not super relevant in the future. In contrast, what if you were to keep your themey elements a little bit more neutral? So sure, incorporate the eggs, but in both of these pictures, they're in a really soft, really neutral color that's going to blend with your overall color theme. And on the picture on the right with your cake, it's a really natural kind of a woodland theme, and there just happened to be some kind of neutral little Easter eggs in there as a nod to the theme, as a nod to the season, instead of being, sort of smack you in the face, this is an Easter wedding, because I feel like in a lot of cases, that's maybe not, in a lot of cases, not every case, it's maybe not that reflective of you as a couple. So don't get sucked into those like, hey, here are all the brightly colored Easter eggs, and we're going to put Easter eggs on our seating chart and on our cake, and they're going to be our favor, and I'm going to have Easter eggs in my bouquet. So just try to make sure that things like that might not stand the test of time are maybe a little bit more neutral, and they blend in with maybe a more overarching theme of woodland or nature or that just soft pastel. I think that's going to serve you better in the future in the long run. So, as always, if you have any questions, I am here all the time. Shoot me an email, amy@unmistakably.you.com. Send me a Facebook message. Send me a DM on Instagram. We would love to hear from you. We are here every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Most of the time we're live, depending on our schedules, but we are here to help. So if you're struggling with something in your wedding planning, don't hesitate to reach out. I am always looking for things to talk about, because I sit here all by myself in my lonely little office talking to myself. So send me some messages, send me some questions, send me a, hey, I just had this wonderful wedding triumph, or hey, I'm really struggling with this in my wedding planning, and I am happy to celebrate your triumphs and help you solve your problems. We at Unmistakably You have been doing this for a really long time, and we're really excited about all things weddings. So we would love to hear from you. Until next week, happy planning, happy Easter, and I will catch you next Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Take care.